What was the Battle of the Trebia, and what are some aspects of it that I think are worthy of note? Let's find out. The Battle of the Trebia was fought around this sort of time of the year, that is to say deep midwinter, in 218 BC, and it was between Rome and Carthage under the generalship of the very famous Hannibal. Now, in this particular battle, I see a number of motifs or strategies that I think you can find elsewhere in other battles that Hannibal has. But this was his first one. This was the first big battle that he fought against Rome. And I think sometimes it goes a bit under the radar, though obviously it's pretty famous. And in a couple of videos, I think there's about 4 in total, I intend to show you some of these elements and hopefully give you a bit more information. Before I do that, I should flag and give a bit of a plug to my podcast, Ancient History Hound, where I actually do a lot on Hannibal. I do each of his battles and a bit more. So go and find that on whichever platform you listen to your podcasts and have a listen. Anyway, that plug done, let's get on with it. So, context. Here we have a map of the march on Rome. And you might notice that it starts in southern Iberia, in fact at Cartagena. And you think to yourself, that's a bit strange, because after all, Hannibal was Carthaginian. And that's true, he was. But he left Carthage around the age of 9. He left with his father, who was a very effective commander and general, and he actually learnt much of what he brought to bear on Rome in southern Iberia. So he actually left Cartagena around 218 BC. And the army he left with is given to us in terms of numbers by Polybius. Polybius, very good source by the way, he gives around 90,000 infantry and 12,000 cavalry. And that's a lot. That is quite a sizable force, and it's speculated that it was probably smaller than that, between 60 and 70,000 in total. Still pretty large, but as we'll see, that number will dwindle. And Polybius actually provides a rationale as to why this occurs. By the time that he crosses the Pyrenees, Hannibal has a force of apparently 50,000 infantry, 12,000 cavalry. Already then, he's lost quite a lot of infantry. And this is accounted for in a number of ways. For example, he stationed apparently 10,000 infantry on the way there. He's also dismissed around 10,000 infantry. And the idea behind that was perhaps he didn't trust those men in particular. He's also fighting on the way, and there would have been desertion and general degradation because, as you can imagine, people unfortunately pass away. They don't always make it on those kind of long marches. So by the time that he's crossed the Pyrenees, he's got 50,000 infantry and 12,000 cavalry. Again, that's the number that Polybius gives us. By the time that he's reached the Rhone and he's crossing it, it's near Massilia by the way, he's down to 38,000 infantry and 9,000 cavalry. And this number drops substantially when he crosses the Alps, which you kind of expect, but perhaps not to the extent that it does, because when he descends the southern Alps, that is to say in northern Italy, in the autumn of 218 BC, he's got 20,000 infantry and 8,000 cavalry. So he's lost almost half of his infantry, but not that much in terms of his cavalry. So perhaps those numbers are a bit fudged. But the numbers that he does have when he descends the Alps are actually quite good, because that's the only numbers that we've got recorded, apparently, by Hannibal. This was recorded in an inscription in southern Italy that apparently Polybius actually went and saw. So that's why we have these numbers of 20,000 infantry, 8,000 cavalry, as a well-established, or shall we say, a number that we're happy to go with when Hannibal's in northern Italy. Hannibal had therefore successfully crossed the Alps, albeit at quite a cost. And the challenges that he had next weren't necessarily Roman, and in the next video I'll pick up on exactly what those were.